warnings, babes. This is an adult podcast made for adult ears. We dive into historical topics and events that might make some of you guys blush or feel a bit uncomfortable over. So if you are not an adult, or if you're an adult who prefers to steer clear from topics that get a little naughty, now might be the time to click away. For the rest of you darling souls, hello and welcome. Ready to pay for it? Me too. But before we dive in, if you love your history with a spicy twist, please consider subscribing on your favorite platform. It really helps the show keep going. All right, enough foreplay. Let's head straight into the red light district. I'm ready if you are.
I got something between my legs gonna make a dead man come on. I got something between my legs gonna make a dead man come on. I'm gonna turn back my mattress and let you all my springs. I want you to find me, daddy, till the bell do ring. Oh, daddy, want you to shave and dry.
Hello, my name is Summer, and this is Paying for It. Thank you for being here for episode 43. Welcome back, darlings, to Paying for It, where we are diving into another slice of sweet, scandalous history you just can't get enough of. I am your host, here to tell you tales of the ladies and gentlemen of the evening, who shaped the world in ways most don't even realize. And of course, to make sure you're having a fabulous time along the way. Now, today's episode is going to whisk us back to the smoky, bustling streets of Ohio in the late 1800s, where a certain Lizzie Lape was making waves and not the genteel church-going kind. We'll talk about how Lizzie built her empire, moved through husbands like dance partners, and how young, ambitious Warren G. Harding might find himself under the spell before he set off on his own journey to become the 29th President of the United States. But before we jump in, I need a little favor from you. If you're loving these deep dives into the red light history, show some love by hitting that follow button, leaving us a rating, and dropping a review. Tell me what you're here for. The intrigue, the cheekiness, a little bit of both. I'm dying to know. And don't forget, we've got more to explore over on our website and social medias. Just search for Paying for It Media on X, Instagram, and the websites. And that's where we post behind the scenes, tidbits, vintage photos, and all kinds of extra goodies that bring our episodes to life. Want more about Lizzie's backstory or a peek at some of the places she frequented? It's all there waiting for you. All right, let's get into it. Light those metaphorical gas lamps, grab a drink, and settle in as we go back to Ohio, where young Warren Harding and a bold woman named Lizzie Lape cross paths in the most unforgettable way. However, how are you guys doing? I forgot to get there. So I hope you guys are doing wonderful. I hope you guys had a wonderful Halloween. And I hope you guys are enjoying November. I had a wonderful Halloween. I threw a Halloween party and I had a great time doing it. I really enjoyed having friends over and just being the hostess with the mostest, you know? And so, yeah, if that's something you like to do, and if you've ever thrown a party, let me know how it went, because, you know, it's nice to know. When you throw your first party, it's a little overwhelming, honestly. You have to do a lot of planning and a lot of like organizing and cleaning. So it can get overwhelming pretty fast. Yeah, we also watched Pearl on Halloween for the first time. I love a scary movie, but I'd watched X, which was the original in this series, but this was the prequel, Pearl's origin story. And honestly, oh, what a fabulous, fabulous character. No wonder everyone loved that movie and love Pearl in general. I think there's another one about Pearl, but I'm not fully positive on that one, but I do believe there is. Who knows? Anyways, let me know the scary movies you've been watching. I've been watching a bunch of scary movies, of course, because tis was just the season and still kind of is the season for me. So, yeah, if you have any goodies that you think I would enjoy, let me know. All right. Enough of that. Let's get into it, shall we? I'm excited to get into Lizzie's part 2. I've been really enjoying getting the nitty-gritty details of her life and all the fun paths she has crossed. In part 1, we uncovered the early life of Lizzie Lape, a story that began in the hills of Whitley County, Kentucky, where young Elizabeth Rogers grew up amid the lingering echoes of the Civil War. From an early age, Lizzie was faced with hardship. Her family struggled with stability and the harsh realities of post-war society, pressing really down on her. Lizzie made the daring choice to leave home at the age of 12. Well, even before she turned 12, actually. From there, we will find her again on her journey north, where she found herself in the bustling streets of Chicago and the infamous Levi district. It's here, far from the smaller town life she knew, that Elizabeth Roger truly became Lizzie, a woman who would eventually catch the eye of a war-worn soldier named Jeremiah Lape. Their union took them to Plain City, Ohio, where they married and started a new life together. Lizzie tried her hand at respectability, even became a mother to their son Henry after 6 long years of marriage. Yet whispers of scandal, suspicion, and unspoken grief shadowed their relationship, especially as Jeremiah grappled with the loss of his beloved mother. Now, I truly encourage you, if you haven't already, to go back and listen to part 1 of Lizzie Lape so that this journey, this next part of our journey, makes sense to you. You understand her fundamental years, and so that you understand her life before she entered into the sex work industry. Now, in part 2, Lizzie's stories takes an unexpected turn as she steps back into the world she once knew. Only this time, it's about more than just getting by, as it's about gaining power, baby. Fueled by her taste for freedom and independence, Lizzie dives headfirst in the nightlife scene, brushing shoulders with gangsters, bootleggers, and gamblers. This once small town girl is ready to claim a whole new identity as Queen of the Tenderloin. Get ready, because we're about to meet a transformed Lizzie Lape, bold, daring, and unafraid to risk it all in pursuit of her place in the world. So with that, You know what time it is. Grab yourself a cocktail, a mocktail, a coffee, whatever you fancy. Today, I have a coffee. Yes, yum, 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 yum. I have a toasted marshmallow coffee. I forgot to say cheers. I just literally went right for it, and I am so sorry. But I've been dying to get a sip of it. It's been sitting over here teasing me, and yeah, I didn't even say cheers. Anyways, let's get back to it. I hope whatever you grab, you are enjoying, and I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy Lizzie Lape Part 2. And cheers, 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 cheers. Why don't I grab my cup and try that again? Cheers, 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 cheers. And let's get into the next part of Lizzie Lape. So we pick up Lizzie's story in 1882, where she lands in Columbus, Ohio, staying at the boarding house on 5th Street near Nashton. Whatever business Lizzie conducted behind those rented doors each night, we can only imagine. Some say she likely returned to the life that had once saved her from the uncertain future awaiting her as a young girl in Kentucky. But perhaps there was more to her time in Columbus. It's possible she left her marriage with some funds from Jeremiah and saw that this is an opportunity to study the business from a new perspective, not as a young girl, but as a woman who saw herself as a queen. This time, Lizzie wasn't just looking for survival. She was thinking about how to rule. In 1884, Lizzie resurfaces in Dayton, Ohio, where she takes a bold leap, running her own salon at 16 East 6th Street. This wasn't just a place of business. It was also her home, and Lizzie was finally trying her hand as a true preparator. But by 1885, Lizzie has moved on to Lima, a bustling railroad town teeming with travelers and opportunities. No longer at her Dayton saloon, she's in a new city with a new man and a fresh business venture, and a rather questionable side hustle that suggests she no longer just is a saloon owner. It seems Lizzie is now diving into the role of a queen who knows exactly how to make Lima's busy streets and its shadowy corners work in her favor. So Lizzie and her new husband, George Hoffman, are in Lima running a brothel, and just for fun, a burglary ring. It seems as though our girl may have married into the wrong side of the law, which is kind of funny if you remember from part 1, because she just got out of a 6-year relationship with a cop. So just to go from a cop to a man in the burglary ring kind of business, it's kind of funny. This burglary ring was very notorious. This burglary ring, so notorious in their career, they got a nickname as the Hoffman Gang. So Lizzie and her new husband, George Hoffman, have set up shop in Lima, running a brothel, and just for kicks, they've started a burglary ring. Okay, so wrap your hand. We know she's already in the underbelly of society. At least that's what they like to say that the girls who sell their wares are in. But now she's fully embracing the dark side of society. Seems though our girl may have married into more trouble than she bargained for. This little side hustle would soon grow notorious, and before long, Lizzie and George's gang had earned its reputation And they weren't just making a name for themselves in the saloon business, they were leaving their mark on the criminal underworld as well. And on April 6th, 1885, the Lima Daily Democratic Times reported extensively on the Hoffman gang after their 6-month reign of crime came to an abrupt end. The article detailed how local law enforcement managed to capture the gang, largely thanks to an inside tip from a confidential informant known as the Australian Girl, who was also a small-town petty thief who had been busted a few days prior. In this article, they also go into a little bit of detail about Lizzie's brothel, stating, running a notorious house of ill repute called the Junction House, it was a jumping off point for out-of-towners, however, also a good spot for ill-fame activities. Known to be located near train tracks, the Junction House was a fitting name for Lizzie's brothel. Much like the other queens we've talked about, Lizzie found herself near the train tracks in the rougher part of town, but in a prime location for all the comings and goings of newcomers. It was the perfect spot for a woman who knew how to capitalize on the flow of fresh faces. Whether they were looking for a little company or something more illicit, nestled right by the tracks, the Junction House became a haven for those passing through, offering warm welcome to travelers and troublemakers alike. After a few nights in jail for concealing stolen property, Lizzie wasn't rattled in the slightest. If anything, the brush with the law seemed only to fuel her ambition. For queens of her line of work, jail time was just an occupational hazard. And Lizzie, she was undeterred. On April 23rd, 1886, a little over a year after her arrest, Lizzie was no longer with her husband or anywhere near her old gang. Instead, at the ripe age of 33, she was making serious money moves. First, Lizzie purchased a half-acre of land in Marion, Ohio, for a cool $1,000. A small fortune in those days. Then on December 24th, she bought the house she'd been living in, snapping it up for about $995 at a sheriff's sale. Her bold push into property ownership was turning heads and making news across town. But the next day, on Christmas 1886, Lizzie's name hits the papers for a surprising reason. A small historical moment that left a mark on Moraine, reported by the Moraine Daily Star. The talk about public telephone office in West Moraine is all bosh. The rumor has arisen from the effort of a few to have Miss Lape's telephone was made public. This will not be done. Lizzie was quick to adopt the latest technology, and it seems she may have been one of the first Moraine to embrace the telephone. Of course, not everyone was thrilled about a notorious madam gaining access to such powerful lines of communication. But Lizzie had money, influence, and a keen sense of independence. She wasn't about to let anyone keep her from advancing her business. Her name was well known in Moraine, and even the editor of Moraine Daily Star had her in the sights, a young Warren G. Harding. Yes, and that Warren G. Harding, who would one day become President of the United States. Their paths would cross more than once, and young Harding would go on to chronicle Lizzie's colorful life in the local paper, giving her infame a whole new level of visibility in Moraine. Little did he know how much Lizzie Lape's story and influence would linger in the town's memory. Let me introduce you to young Warren G. Harding. In Moran, Ohio, two bold lives intersected in an unexpected way. The young newspaperman Warren G. Harding and the infamous Madam Lizzie Lape. Part journalist, part ladies' man, Harding's ambition was unmistakable, and he began his career at the Moran Star when his family purchased the struggling paper in 1884. Warren quickly became a voice in town, weaving his opinions with wit and charm. He was known for his sharp insights into the lives of Moran's colorful characters, including Lizzie. Born in 1865, Warren grew up with privilege and education thanks to his accomplished parents. Yet it was his knack for connecting with people and navigating tricky social waters that made him an ideal editor for a town like Moran. In his early days as editor, Warren covered local happenings, crime, and scandal with a unique, even-handed approach. When he wrote about Lizzie, he chose a tone of respect, no small gesture for a madam in the 1880s. This fair treatment didn't go unnoticed, and it's likely meant positive attention for Lizzie's place. While their relationship began on the printed page, it didn't stay there. Rumors suggested that Harding was more than just a writer with a sympathetic pen. He was also a patron of Lizzie's establishments at the White Pigeon. Though the true depth of their connection remains elusive, Harding's respect for Lizzie may have extended beyond business. And years later, as he pursued the presidency, one might wonder, did the lessons he learned in Moran shape the man who would go on to lead the nation? In this small Ohio town, Lizzie's world and Warren's ambitions collided, making history far more layered than a single headline ever could. The White Pigeon, Lizzie Lape's infamous bordello, was the crown jewel of her empire in Moran, Ohio. When Lizzie arrived in 1885, she was no naive newcomer, but a worldly 34-year-old woman seasoned by the bustle of Chicago. With her purchase of the White Pigeon and the adjoining Red House, Lizzie brought a certain polish and sophistication that must have seemed glamorous and exotic in a small town Ohio, particularly to young Warren G. Harding. At 22, Warren was just beginning to make his mark on the Moran scene, and Lizzie's charisma was no doubt magnetic to him and the other men who frequented her establishment. Known for his quick wit and humor, Warren couldn't resist a mischievous prank now and then. When he devised a practical joke involving his old friend and newspaper rival, Colonel James Bogan, he knew the exact woman to enlist for help: Lizzie. Warren proposed staging a fake raid on the White Pigeon, a scandalous setup to shock his unsuspecting friend. Of course, Lizzie was in on the plan. Attempting a stunt like that without her blessing would have been unthinkable and extremely dangerous. But as many pranksters learn, sometimes the joke has unintended consequences. Colonel Bogan was mortified by this stunt and took the embarrassment to heart. The damage to their friendship was severe, and Bogan never truly forgave Warren. Aware of the lasting impact, Warren published a cryptic apology in the Moran Star, a subtle nod to the joke gone wrong and a testament to his regret over losing a trusted friend. Moran Daily Star read on May 11th, 1887, "The humor that Bogan misses, that grand old elegant gentleman who edits the Mirror, is of little consequence. Jim never fails to inquire if the chicken coop is locked. Listen, that makes no sense to me, but that's because the way they talked back in the day, some of it just doesn't make sense, but they're pretty much saying, he's pretty much saying, I know, I effed up, I'm sorry, you didn't get the humor in it, but I did, and I'm sorry. Anyways, between 1887 and 1890, Lizzie Lape's ambitions started to stretch beyond Marion as she sets her sights on the bustling city of Akron, a full-fledged city with endless opportunities. This period also brought 2 more husbands into Lizzie's life. First, John Jack Lizzie, a fellow from Muskingum, Ohio, entered the scene. And then came George W. Hoffman. Now, George's stint with Lizzie appears to have been brief, shrouded in mystery, and no marriage record really does confirm their union. Now, let's get back to Jack Lucille, also known as Jake, and how he ended up both working at Lizzie's White Pigeon and becoming her third husband. This tale is packed with the kind of small town drama that's too juicy to pass up. In December 1886, Jack was arrested for serving alcohol to someone with a notorious penchant for getting drunk. And who was that lucky recipient of Jack's libations? None other than Henry Pete DeWolf, a man whose name brings us into a whole other layer of intrigue. To fully grasp this story, we need to rewind a bit and meet some key players. Armus Kling was a wealthy, hard-hearted businessman in Marion and the father of Florence Kling, who had a rocky history with none other than Pete DeWolf. Early in 1886, Florence would marry Pete only to be deserted in 1880, right after their son's Marshall's birth. She will file for divorce. Penniless and destitute, Florence had no choice but to return to her father's home. However, Armus Kling, unyielding as ever, agreed to take her back in only if she gave custody of young Marshall to him. Spoiler alert, don't fret, because even though Florence was down and out in this moment of her life and getting bare minimum help from her dick of a father, she will go on to become First Lady, as she will marry Warren G. Harding. So with these pieces in place, we've reached December 1886, when Warren G. Harding ran this headline in the Marion Daily Star on December 11th. The person who sold Henry DeWolf liquor Friday evening were arrested Saturday afternoon. State of Ohio versus John E. Lazaller and John Dock. Information charging them with selling intoxicating liquors to a person in the habit of getting drunk. Both have bonds for their appearance in court of $200 each. Now, the tea just keeps getting hotter. Almost King, a prominent and notorious tough businessman in Marion, had no love lost for the Marion Daily Star. And why, you ask? Well, Almost couldn't stand the newspaper editor and owner, young Warren G. Harding. Maybe it was because the negative press the Star occasionally threw his way, or perhaps it was something a bit more closer to home. You see, Warren was taking quite the interest in Omar's daughter, Florence, an interest that, like I said, would eventually lead to some serious family friction. Armos had his reasons for wanting to keep Warren at a distance. The Star had a reputation for stirring the pot and giving a platform to people like Lizzie Lape, who, let's just say, operated outside the conventional lines. To Armis, Warren was not just a young journalist with a sense of humor, but a meddler, one who seemed too eager to get into the lives of Maureen's most influential families. And for the teeny fact that Warren seemed super set on wooing Florence, only made things more complicated. Anyways, back to Jake and Lizzie. Jake likely saw the writing on the wall after landing on Armis's bad side. Soon after, he put the Car House Saloon up for sale, which was the saloon he owned that got him in a little bit of trouble for, selling liquor to the person who was in the habit of getting drunk. And the Maureen store ran the next spicy updates to this saga on February 17th, 1887. Jack Lucille has sold the Car House Saloon and intends to leave Maureen. Jack may have had every intention of hightailing it out of town, but he didn't make it far. Eventually, he found refuge in Lizzie's world, taking a job as a bartender at her establishment, the White Pigeon. And wouldn't you know it, as history often whispers, the working relationship began to heat up. Perhaps it was love, or maybe just a spark of convenience, but whatever it was, Jake and Lizzie's chemistry soon led them down the aisle, with Lizzie adding yet another chapter to her tale of passion, power, and, practical partnership. But Lizzie may have overlooked one crucial detail in bringing Jack into her world: his rather powerful enemy, Armis Kling. Here's the tea, darlings. In my humble opinion, Lizzie's run of bad luck in the next few years wasn't about her career as a bordello queen. It was all about the company she was keeping. You see, by letting Jack into her doors and into her heart, Lizzie may have unknowingly courted trouble of the worst kind. This was the same Jack who had Armis Kling's blood boiling after serving drinks to Kling's ex-son-in-law, who just happened to be notorious for his habits. Within just a few short years, Lizzie will find herself arrested and forced to leave Maureen. Was it a coincidence that her misfortunes began right when Jack entered her life? History, as it does, remains mum on the details, but it is sure makes you wonder if Lizzie had taken on an enemy more powerful than she bargained for. Still, leaving Maureen with Jack didn't mean she left the White Pigeon entirely. Lizzie, ever the strategist, saw the heat rising and knew she needed a solid plan if she wanted to keep her business going, even from afar. So she did what any savvy businesswoman would. She hired a management team. She entrusted the place to Dan and Martha Fritz, a husband and wife duo who are not only old friends, but seasoned veterans in the arts of the trade. With their help, Lizzie could start her next adventure knowing her empire was in good hands. Now, let's dig into Lizzie's next chapter with Jack, her departure from Maureen, and the capable manager she left in her wake. Lizzie had big plans beyond Maureen. She set her sights on expanding her business empire to Akron, Ohio, leaving the White Pigeon in the capable hands of Dan and Maddie Fitz, a fierce husband and wife team. For the next 12 years, Dan and Maddie didn't just manage the White Pigeon, they ruled it. Dan was known for his no-nonsense approach, taking on everything from barroom brawls to disgruntled spouses with a heavy hand and trouble that drifted through the West End. Dan was ready to handle it, whether that meant dealing with a crooked bartender, scrapping doves, thieves, Patreons, or the occasional cheating husband. Meanwhile, Lizzie had been a prominent figure in Marian's business landscape, working with shopkeepers and breweries around town. But like a true queen, she left Marian with her debts trailing behind her, ready to launch new ventures in the bustling city of Akron. Not long after her move, Lizzie filed for divorce from Jack, with Akron Beacon's Journal reporting on September 27th, 1890. A divorce was today granted to Lizzie Lape, and she was restored to her maiden name of Lizzie Lape and given possession of all her property. Their relationship remains a mystery to history, but luckily for us, history offers a few tantalizing clues about Lizzie's life before her divorce. On September 8th, 1890, Lizzie's first husband, Jeremiah Lape, passed away, prompting a trust fund case filed on her behalf of their son, Arvell. To handle this legal matter, Lizzie hired Lorenzo de Waters, paying him a substantial $1,000 retainer fee, a decision that sparked an unexpected friendship. Just days before her divorce, Lizzie transferred ownership of the White Pigeon to Waters, her lawyer, as ordered by the court, to establish a trust fund for Arvell. This arrangement allowed Waters to manage the income from the White Pigeon until Arvell reached 25, an unheard of setup at the time, when child support cases against women were very, very rare, and especially remarkable considering the White Pigeon's unconventional business. So basically, this is a little bit confusing, but Lizzie's going to go on to divorce Jack days after her husband, her first husband, passes away. And it's important to note that when Lizzie divorces Jack, she goes back to what they report on as her maiden name, Lape, but truly it was actually not her maiden Lape. Her maiden name is Rogers, but she will always stick with Lape, no matter how many divorces she goes through. And honey, it's a lot. We have not even gotten to the end of it. I promise you that. Okay, so what my opinion on this whole thing is that Lizzie was all about her money. She was all about her money. She was all about obtaining her properties and her stuff, you know? So when this whole thing with Jeremiah happens, and then her husband or her son basically is left parentless, and she gets sued for a trust fund, she knows she has to do something major, because now the White Pigeon, yes, it's hers, and yes, she owns it, and the profit is somewhat hers, but a lot of it is going to her son now. So Trouble in Paradise probably started prior to this, but she also knew she had to protect herself from her mansies, you know? So he could have potentially stopped her from allowing this trust fund case to go through and allowing her to sign over ownership to her lawyer for this trust fund, causing her to lose a lot of money. So she had to be very savvy. And back in part 1, we talked about the friend she made when she was with her ex-husband Jeremiah. I'm blanking on the name, but this lady was able to successfully sue her husband and obtain her ownership of land, which was unheard of for women. And Lizzie will continue to use this model for the remaining years of her life. She successfully sues her husbands quite often to obtain her ownership, because these men were coming into her life after she already owned this stuff and owns her property and her businesses and stuff like that. So she learned something from her friend back in Plain City. And it's important to note that although there was no, history doesn't tell us that they were fighting or anything, it's probably understood that he was not going to want to let her sell or let her sign over the white pigeon, because then she was no longer going to be gaining that money, and he would be also losing some money, and he probably would have to, go to work or something. So he wasn't too happy, I'm assuming, about that. And also, Lizzie never liked to be tied down. It's going to be very clear throughout her story how often she does not like to be tied down. She often does not find her match, and when she thinks she's finding her matches, things happen that prove to her that she sure is not. So, yeah. Anyways, we covered a lot in this episode. We covered her next two husbands, which the timeline of these two are very confusing to me. I wasn't sure if George Hoffman came first or if Jake Lozano came first. Either way, they were both in her life around the same time period. And one of them was a notorious gang member, and the other was just a bartender who tended to get himself into tended to make the worst kind of enemy. And that enemy did affect her life a little bit, because she was very quickly arrested after she brought in Jack. Her white pigeon was often getting raided. So when the heat started coming down on her, that was the reason she hired in this management team. It might not have been the full reason, but it was partially the reason. And then she's going to want to continue to grow her business, and that's why she moves to Akron, which is a big city and has a lot to offer for her. And we'll continue on to this Lizzie's journey in Akron, and we'll kind of get more into her life, more into some husbands, and a lot of tea. I mean, this girl and her personal life, ooh, it is juicy. It is juicy, babes. The more I research on her, the more I'm like, damn, the girl did not care. Anyways, but yeah, so I found that the path to cross paths with our 29th U.S. president was quite interesting. And I want to note that Deborah Lape, the one who wrote the book that I've been using as research, looking for Lizzie, the true story of the Ohio Madam, her sporting life, and hidden legacy. She is very careful not to suggest, she's very careful to kind of just hint at the fact that Warren may have been a Patreon in Lizzie's world, but it is actually pretty clear that he was. In fact, he had one point said that his favorite house was the Red House, which was the adjoining brothel that Lizzie ran next to the White Pigeon. And the white pigeon isn't going anywhere. The white pigeon will continue to be in her story, even though she signs over ownership to her lawyer. And her lawyer is going to play a big part in her life as well coming up, because he uses Lizzie and she uses him, you know. He becomes mayor of Morian. He uses her influence and she uses his influence. They kind of use each other. And a lot of her marriages are very much similar. They kind of use each other to push themselves further into life and influence. I do like that our getting a look at Lizzie's life has brought us a look into one of our president's life and what he was up to before he became the president and how he met his wife. And I do find it fascinating because, one, Florence's dad seems like a motherfucking jackass, because what the hell, dude? Why are you making her sign over custody? But also, he could not stand the fact that Warren, the editor, was courting his daughter, and he really attempted all possibilities to make that whole thing stop. But you could tell that when he didn't like something or was annoyed by someone, he would just use his money and his influence to kind of bullshit some. He would do some bullshit. He was very petty. I mean, just the little case we looked at where he got Jack arrested for serving his ex-son-in-laws. That would be, I mean, that's petty, babes. That's petty. And he was doing it for petty reasons. He just wanted to pretty much outcast his son-in-law, which I get. He was not doing what he shouldn't be. He wasn't providing for his daughter. He wasn't providing for his grandson. The ex was not providing for his daughter and nor his son, so his wife or daughter. And that pissed almost off. But really, it wasn't that he cared for his daughter in any sort of way, because if he had, he would have not had he would not have made her sign over custody. It seemed like he just wanted the power and that manipulation over her. And so he seemed controlling in his own way. But I do love that for her, she will go on to marry Warren and become First Lady. Whatever happens to Marshall, I'm not actually sure. I didn't really look into it. I should have. I don't ever know if she ends up gaining custody back, but I hope so. And yeah, I just love looking at the small town drama and how you think these are just like small town people, but then you see how their life blossoms into way bigger things, you know? You wouldn't expect Warren G. Harding, just an editor of a little town's newspaper, to just become the president. That would probably be 100% unheard of today. Like probably 100% unheard of today. So, yeah. And there you have it, darlings. The twists and turns of Lizzie Lape's life in part 2. What a ride, right? Lizzie's move to Akron was nothing short of bold. She didn't just run from her troubles in Morian. She expanded her empire with the help of Dan and Maddie Fritz holding down the fort at the White Pigeon. Lizzie sets her sights on building her legacy in a bigger city, but as we've seen time and time again, life was never without complications for Lizzie. Her divorce from Jack Lizzler, I cannot say his last name, left her free, but not without baggage. And that trust fund battle for her son, Arvel, revealed how Lizzie navigated not just her business ventures, but the legal system itself with a cunning determination. But what really sets this chapter apart is how Lizzie started to outgrow the small town whispers and set into the world of power players. From her association with Lorenzo Duartos, a lawyer who becomes mayor of Akron, to her ability to run even the courts to her advantage, which she really does. She rules those courts, and she hires people that truly know how to win a case. Lizzie wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. The white pigeon became more than a bordello. It was a symbol of her resilience, even as she began planting roots in Akron and beyond. Yet, for all her triumphs, Lizzie's story isn't finished. Oh no, my friends. The drama is far from over. Lizzie is about to face new challenges, new rivals, and maybe even a few old ghosts. And let's not forget, Lizzie isn't just a queen in her own right. She's about to go head to head with the law in ways that make her previous scrimmages look like child's play. Will Lizzie's sharp wit and suave keep her on top, or will the forces around her finally catch up? And what about her heart? Will she find lasting love, or will her next move bring her chaos, or will her next moves bring her chaos into her life? And let me just tease you with this. There's a new city on the horizon for Lizzie, one that will push her to her limits in ways we haven't seen yet. So make sure you're following us on social media, subscribe wherever you're listening, and leave us a review to let us know what you think of Lizzie's story so far. Join us next time as we uncover the next chapter in Lizzie's incredible life, filled with intrigue, danger, and of course, a whole lot of scandal. Until then, stay curious, my darlings. Well, darlings, that wraps up another whirlwind chapter in the line of Lizzie Lape's businesswoman, madam and all-around icon of the Gilded Age. From the rough and tumble streets of Moran to her ambitious expansion into Akron, Lizzie continues to rewrite the rules and turns heads while doing it. Now, if you've loved diving into this part of Lizzie's story, let me tell you, there's so much more to come. We're only scratching the surface of her empire building years, her tangled relationships, and oh yes, the legal drama that's about to unfold. If you're ready for more tea, scandal, and sass, make sure you're tuned in for part 3, where Lizzie's story takes even bolder turns. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. But before we part ways, I have a little favor to ask you. If you're enjoying this episode of Paying for It, show your love by leaving us a review wherever you're listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you press play. Your reviews help out more history buffs and scandal lovers to find us and this show. And they keep us going. And don't forget to connect with us on social media. You can find us on Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, and TikTok at payingforitmedia.com or just Paying For It Media. We share historical tidbits, behind the scenes scandals, and the juiciest facts we uncover while researching the episodes. Plus, you'll get updates on new episodes, fun polls, and of course, the occasional cheeky post about Lizzie and her companions. If you want to dive deeper into Lizzie's world or explore other stories we've covered, head over to the website at payingforitmedia.com and you'll find episode notes, additional resources, and maybe even a few surprises along the way. Oh, And while you're there, sign up for our newsletter to get exclusive updates and content delivered straight to your inbox. You never know, you might just get a sneak peek at what's coming next. So here's your homework. Follow us, leave a review, and share the podcast with your friends who love history with a twist. Together, let's keep the stories of Lizzie and other bold women alive. Until next time, stay curious, stay cheeky, and remember, history isn't always what you read in the textbooks. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of Paying for It. Bye, babes!
I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I got something between my legs that'll make a dead man come. Oh, that. I'm gonna turn back my mattress and let you all my springs. I want you to find me, daddy, till the bell do ring. Oh, daddy, want you to shake.